Next and also last speaker for today's program, and please welcome Dr. Pieter Vermaas. He's an associate professor at the Ethics and Philosophy of the Technology section at Delft University. So he's joining us from the Netherlands. And Pieter has an expertise in exploring the ethical and societal aspects of quantum technologies and how to enable society to partake in development of these technologies, which we also just discussed in our panel right now, the participation of society. And Pieter is in the core team of ELSA, which is Ethical, Legal and Social Aspects of Quantum Technology, within the Quantum Delta, which is a central quantum initiative in the Netherlands. So, Pieter, it's a pleasure to have you here. The floor is yours now, and I'm looking forward to your talk.
Okay, thank you, Natalia. And thanks for the invitation. I'm sorry, I was traveling yesterday, so I couldn't join, but I'm happy to give this presentation to your Quantum Summit. I hope everything is visible, slides, and I'm audible. Yes. I was invited to ask to say something about society and quantum computing, and more specifically, will quantum computing be rejected by society? And when the invitation came, it was made clear, okay, will society burn down quantum computing as they do with other technologies, the 5G towers. And of course, when I now present this question and give you the picture, it's of course a kind of bit of caricature question. It's a nice picture, but in addition, I kept the question central in my presentation because actually it is quite a nice question. It makes it quite clear what is at stake. So what I will do is I will discuss this question for you about what society will do with quantum computing. Will it be violent? And since I'm a philosopher, what I will do is to analyze the presuppositions which come in this question. And that is that there is a quite polarized relation assumed between the technology on the one hand, quantum computing, and society as a block at the other side. What I will argue is an assumption which actually plays quite a central role in the development of quantum computing, but it's also one which is about to go. We're moving towards another way of seeing the relation between society and quantum computing. Well, that's what I want to do. A little bit about myself. I'm a philosopher of technology, indeed, in Delft University in the Netherlands. I did a PhD in philosophy of quantum mechanics, so I know both worlds, and now, in addition, also working in the big Dutch program, which organizes more or less all research in the Netherlands on quantum technologies. It's called Quantum DataNL, runs for 7 years. And what is interesting to show, so you see there the little organogram of how it is organized, is it has that same presupposition in its core. It positions the real research, that's action line 1, it's the white circle in the middle, research innovation. That's physicists, that's computer scientists. And then it's organized, that program, with action lines around that core. The first action line is the ecosystem, is collaboration with companies and startups. third action line is again around it. That's what you just were discussing, the workforce development, human capital, how going to teach others. And then the final layer around it is a kind of interface to society. That's we philosophers. So in addition to ethics, there's legal, societal outreach efforts around it. But what you see is that there's again this interaction that the research is different to society, and society is somewhere out there. We try to overcome that, but it is core in the way in which quantum computing has developed. And one of the reasons for that was that it's actually quite profitable to present quantum computing in that way. So the idea is a bit schematized. Okay, you got the quantum computers and the people working on that, and then society is outside. Stole a picture from German society. Society is also a bit grim because it might reject us. That frame is a frame which has been used more often in other ways. You can see it when quantum was presented initially, as still is it's presented as an enigma, as something special, something really strange. No one actually knows apart from the physicists and maybe the computer scientists. And that framing, so we know you don't, is certainly profitable, because once you do that, you can argue, well, quantum computing is really new because, it's going to apply something no one understands yet. And so for sure, by definition, it's innovative. Moreover, there's another advantage of that frame is only the physicists and the computer scientists who jump on board know about it. So if you want to invest in us. So society is then put aside, saying, you don't know, but you have to support us because it's really new. Now, the pictures are Feynman, probably you recognize him. He said that reasonably no one understands what quantum is about. And if you have still doubts, you get Schrödinger's cat, a cat which is dead and alive simultaneously. And what, as a consequence, society is put aside as something, you don't know. But you have to support us. A similar scheme you can find in arguments that encryption of digital domain should be improved quite quickly. So quantum computing with the Shor algorithm could lead to the ability to crack on existing cybersecurity. Well, that would mean that much of society depending on internet or communication over internet would be jeopardized. Think about the financial system. Hence, everyone should switch to post-quantum crypto or even quantum internet. And again, it's new. So in order to make that transition, pay us. We can tell you how this threat can be avoided. Again, profitable because you attract so much attention. The final one is a new one, emerged a couple of years ago, and that is that quantum computing is framed within the geopolitical context. And of course, with the war in Ukraine, that all of a sudden became much more visible, much more important. But it's already running for a while. So you got the power blocks, the free ones, and the one who has the quantum computer first will be able to undermine autonomy, sovereignty of the others. So therefore, we frame ourselves in Europe as the ones who are lagging behind. There's a call to action. Europe, society, pay us a lot because we need our quantum computer. Again, it's this clear distinction. We know society doesn't. support us. And if you do that, in a sense, you pre-program that society actually has just one choice: support or not. There's nothing in between because it's not offered. It's this polarizing relation which is given. Of course, I make it a bit stronger in order to make the point clear. But with this polarization perspective, you can also understand, let's say, current responses to keep society on board in quantum computing. You see lots of outreach efforts to nevertheless try to inform society, although they don't know. We'll try it, explain it again. You see that developers of quantum computing say, well, we want to share it anyway. So IBM is the nice example. We have the quantum computer, you don't, but you may play on it by online connection. So an effort to nevertheless bridge the gap, keep society on board. More interesting is attempts to say, okay, you have to support us, society, but quantum computing will support you too in the long run. It will give economic growth. It will uphold that sovereignty in Europe, and it will also solve all other problems which you, society, are thinking about. For instance, climate change. Well, the picture I brought to illustrate this approach is the office of Microsoft in Denmark. And it's really interesting because if you see that picture, there's this lit corner. It's the corner which is closest to the street. And that's where they do their development. So their laboratory, their qubits, they're developing at that corner in order to translate, to show that they want to be transparent. This time they want to show that quantum computing or that research is public, can be assessed. And around that, you can walk around the building. It's a little concourse, kind of park, and then you have little placards. Okay, when we are done with this research, it will also support climate change. Or curbing climate change. So in order to make this point of that, okay, we support you too. Still, it's in this framework of contrast. But it's a step away from, let's say, really making that big divide. And what I want to argue is that the next step actually in development of technology is the current state of how people think about innovation of technology is to start thinking about deliberation with society. So not making a distinction, but try to collaborate. Those new approaches come with lots of names. Responsible research innovation is the label which the European Union uses in its Horizon projects. You have to innovate, but in a responsible way. If you look at artificial intelligence, also the European community has ethics by design. It says, okay, let's do AI, but design it such that our ethics, our values, societal values, European values are already incorporated in it. Well, if you do that, if you go that way, you also have to know what the values are of society. And in these approaches, society then stops to become a large block of lay persons who don't know, but they are cut up into stakeholder groups which can help you develop the technology. Why? Well, for avoiding that they indeed reject it, start burning it down, although it's a caricature. but also, and will show it for a positive impact, to use quantum computing or new technologies for contributing to society. Going through the contrast which I just showed, here you actually need also overcoming this contrast and deliberation with your groups. You were just talking about developing the workforce. Well, if you want to do that, if you want to teach your next generation engineers and scientists, you need much more people who study it. And then Feynman should go. You can't start a course with saying, well, whatever you're going to teach you, you don't understand, but nevertheless do it. No, you have to collaborate, and this group of students come in between. Same with overcoming security threats. It doesn't make sense to just say, well, there will be a threat and we will develop new encryption in order to keep the threat out. Now, in order to let firms, organizations, and all other parties to migrate to that new type of encryption, you have to collaborate. You have to collaborate with the financial institutions, with the governments. So again, don't see society as a block of laypersons, but see them as groups with whom you should collaborate. Finally, this geopolitical fight, we don't want that anymore. Society doesn't want that. The world consists of much more than just these three power blocks. You have all kinds of countries, some who don't have quantum computing, some who do. And in the last decades, we have been in the flow of keeping global South on board to share our economic development. And the most notable example is the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. We all want that the whole society in the world will prosper in the next millennium, and therefore we want to step out of this frame of that is just power blocks fighting with each other. Is this possible, this more deliberative approach? Yes, it is possible, and it's taking place. In the light of time, I will rush a little bit through it. But notably is the World Economic Forum, who started to develop governance principles for quantum computing with exactly this idea of it's not about just economic development or it's about being the best. No, it is about supporting society. So they have a long report, 80 pages, where they go through 8 themes. And I gave 4 because you can see it's already not economic, sustainability, open access, where they say, okay, quantum computing should be developed in a way that it will help these themes. Actions are identified in order to do that. So here, firms and institutions are thinking for society. Finally, for my own program, Quantum Delta in the Netherlands, what we want to do is that as soon as a firm or company has a use case, we want to invite them to an infrastructure where that firm can, with stakeholders or other parties in society, go through the ethical, legal, and societal aspects of that use case for improving it and for co-creating something which does lead to good results. Will society reject quantum computing? I don't think so. But for that, we should stop with giving these black and white choices and show that quantum computing is not part of the problem, but of the solution. Collaboration on all levels and try to work on global goals. That was what I wanted to present to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pieter, for interesting insights. So what do you think, where do we stand as Europe in this co-development towards the sustainable development goals? Do we need to be more involved, or are we on the right track with that, with comparison to other world regions?
I think in Europe it definitely exists, the efforts to collaborate or to develop quantum computing in such a way. Also, you have to say, well, quantum computing, all these applications are not yet that developed. So it's too early to really assess firms on this with this criterion. But if you look at the World Economic Forum, there you can see that companies do worldwide do think about how they can collaborate to society or contribute to society.
Good. Thank you very much again for your contribution.